AITA for refusing to let my roommate's partner move in temporarily, even though, she says, I'm being unfair. I, 28F, live in a two-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Claire, 27F. We've lived together for 3 years and generally get along well. I pay my share of rent and bills, and we've always divided chores and responsibilities fairly. I work from home as a graphic designer, so I spend most of my days in the apartment, and having a stable, predictable environment is very important for my focus and mental health. A few weeks ago, Claire's partner, Ryan, 29M, had an unexpected issue with his apartment lease. He said he needed a place to stay temporarily while he sorted out his housing situation, and Claire asked if he could move in for a few weeks. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. I explained that our apartment is small, my work requires privacy, and having a third adult living here, even temporarily, would be disruptive. I also mentioned that our lease technically only allows 2 people living here, and bringing in another person could violate the agreement or increase our liability. Claire seemed frustrated, but said she understood, and I thought that would be the end of it. A few days later, she brought it up again and said Ryan really has nowhere else to go, and that I should just make an exception for a short period. I repeated that I wasn't comfortable and offered to help them look for temporary solutions, like a short-term sublet, staying with friends, or even a budget Airbnb. I even offered to help contribute to the cost if money was an issue. She dismissed all of these suggestions, saying it wasn't the same as staying with her. Things escalated when Claire started texting me multiple times a day, alternating between pleading and guilt-tripping. She said I was being selfish and not a good friend for refusing to help her partner in a tough situation. She kept saying, he's only going to be here a couple of weeks. It won't be a big deal, and I don't understand why you're making this so hard. I explained again that it's not about how long, it's about the disruption to my work and personal space, and the fact that it could put us at risk with the lease. Claire then started mentioning it to mutual friends, framing me as unreasonable and unsupportive. Some friends have privately messaged me asking if I could just bend a little because it's a temporary situation. I explained that I'm not opposed to helping in general, but I have boundaries regarding my living space and work requirements. I've suggested compromises multiple times. I could let Ryan store some belongings here while staying elsewhere at night. I could help him move into temporary housing, or I could let him crash for a night or two if absolutely necessary. But Claire refuses all of these alternatives. The tension has affected our friendship. Claire has been cold and distant, and every time she brings it up, she frames it as me being cruel or uncaring. I feel guilty because I understand she's stressed about her partner's housing situation, but I also feel that I have a right to say no when it comes to my home and my work. My apartment is my sanctuary, and bringing in a third person, even temporarily, would interfere with both my mental health and professional obligations. I've tried to communicate clearly and calmly. I've reiterated that my refusal isn't personal against Ryan or her. It's about my needs and the logistics of the situation. I've even offered financial help, assistance in finding a temporary place, and limited short-term compromises. Nothing satisfies her. She insists that having Ryan here is the only option and that I'm being unreasonable for not wanting to help family in this way. Some friends have told me I'm right to stand my ground because my living space, mental health, and lease restrictions are valid reasons to refuse. Others say I should compromise, at least for a short time, to support my roommate during a crisis. I feel guilty and stressed because I don't want to damage my friendship with Claire, but I also feel that giving in would create resentment and potentially set a precedent for future conflicts. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my roommate's partner move in temporarily, even though she says I'm being unfair. Character count, 6,667, white heavy checkmark. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for confronting my sister at my wedding and causing a scene that might have ruined the day. I 28F, have been planning my wedding with my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for over a year. Everything has been going smoothly. Well, as smoothly as weddings go, until recently when some long-standing family issues came to a head. I'm honestly still shaking over what happened, and I need an outside perspective because my family is split in half over it. My younger sister, Emma, 25F, and I have had a complicated relationship for as long as I can remember. She's always been the golden child in our family's eyes. Straight A's, model behavior, popular, and very opinionated. I've always been more introverted, a bit messy, and prone to anxiety, so there's been a lot of tension between us, mostly subtle but sometimes explosive. For the most part, I tried to ignore it, but I'll admit I've held grudges over some of the hurtful things she's done over the years. When I got engaged, I made it very clear to my parents and Emma that I wanted the wedding to be as drama-free as possible. I had a vision, smallish, intimate, and joyful. I even set boundaries early, telling Emma that while I loved her and wanted her involved, she couldn't interfere with decisions, especially seating arrangements, dresses, or speeches. She agreed at the time, though there were some side comments about how she knew better than me on some things. Fast forward to a few weeks before the wedding. Emma was supposed to be in charge of a small part of the decorations. Nothing major, just making sure the flowers were arranged and the centerpieces looked nice. I didn't think much of it, assuming she'd follow through. However, one evening, I went to the venue to check on progress and found a huge section of the hall completely redecorated with her ideas. She had replaced my color scheme with something entirely different, and when I asked her why, she said, "I just thought it needed a little more flair." I was stunned. This was not a minor adjustment. She completely disregarded my wishes. I asked her to revert it to my original plan, and she became defensive, saying, "It's your day, but people are going to remember how beautiful it looks now." I tried to let it go, but this escalated over the next week. She kept sending passive-aggressive texts like, "I hope the table settings make everyone feel as classy as they should," or "Don't worry, I made sure the flowers are Instagram-worthy." I started to feel like she was undermining me in front of our family and guests, which stressed me out immensely. I confided in Mark about it, and he suggested I confront her directly but calmly. The day of the wedding arrived, and everything was mostly fine until the reception started. Guests were arriving, drinks were flowing, and I was trying to enjoy myself. Then Emma gave her maid of honor speech. It started off sweet enough, but midway through, she began talking about our childhood in a way that highlighted all my embarrassing moments and failures. She told a story about how I tried to cook spaghetti and nearly burned down the kitchen, then segued into a story about my teenage crushes, complete with exaggerated dramatization. The room started laughing, and I could feel my face turning red. I couldn't take it anymore. In front of everyone, I stood up and interrupted her, saying something like, "Emma, this isn't about you. I love you, but I asked you not to make me the punchline of your speech. This is my wedding day." The room went silent. She looked shocked, and our parents looked horrified. She tried to defend herself, saying it was all in good fun, but I cut her off, saying, "You've been undermining me for weeks, changing things I planned, sending passive-aggressive messages, and now humiliating me in front of everyone. I cannot accept this." After that, I walked away, and my wedding coordinator quickly wrapped up the speech, moving to the next speaker. Mark stayed by my side, holding my hand, but I could feel the tension in the room. Emma stormed off to the restroom crying, and the rest of the evening was awkward. Some guests later came up to me, saying that what I did was brave, but others whispered that I was overreacting and that I should have just let her have her moment. After the wedding, the fallout has been intense. My parents are upset with me for ruining the moment, and Emma has barely spoken to me. She keeps saying I embarrassed her, and that she was only trying to make the wedding special. Mark supports me, but I can't help feeling guilty because I didn't want to fight on my wedding day, yet I also feel like I had no choice. Some friends say I was in the right because it was my wedding and my boundaries were ignored, while others say I should have handled it privately. Even my extended family is divided. Some are taking Emma's side and claiming I was too harsh in front of everyone. I honestly don't know if I overstepped or if standing up for myself in that moment was justified. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister in front of everyone at my wedding and causing a scene. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the guest list and is now demanding my financial help. This is going to be long, but I'll try to make it clear. I, 32M, have a younger sister, Lily, 29F, who has always been a bit dramatic. Growing up, we were close, but over the past 5 years, our relationship has been tense, to put it mildly. We live in different cities, and while I've always tried to stay in touch, Lily tends to pull away if she feels criticized or if I don't agree with her choices, which has led to a lot of misunderstandings. About a year ago, Lily got engaged to her now fiancé, Adam. At first, I was genuinely happy for her, and I offered to help in any way I could. I have some experience planning events, and I suggested helping with vendor research and budgeting. She initially accepted, but within a month, she started brushing off my suggestions, claiming she had everything under control. Fast forward to last month, Lily sent out the save the dates. I noticed something odd. My name was missing from the guest list. At first, I thought it was a mistake, so I called her. Her response was, "Oh, I just didn't think you want to come. It's going to be a very small, intimate wedding with just close friends and Adam's family." I reminded her that I am her brother and we've always been close. She said, "I know, but we have limited seats, and honestly, I just feel like it would be awkward. You wouldn't get along with my bridesmaids." I was stunned. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that family comes first, and that excluding me from my sister's wedding was really hurtful. She doubled down, saying that Adam didn't want me there, and that it wasn't personal. I honestly felt blindsided and deeply hurt, but I didn't want to start a huge fight, so I let it go for now. Then came the kicker. About 2 weeks later, she called me and asked if I could contribute to the wedding. She explained that there were unexpected costs and that she and Adam were stretching their budget. She said, "You don't even have to come, but it would mean a lot if you could help out financially." I was confused and frustrated. She had actively excluded me from the wedding, citing awkwardness and limited space. And now she expected me to pay for an event I wasn't allowed to attend. I told her that it didn't feel right to contribute financially when I wasn't even invited. I also reminded her that I had offered help during the planning phase, but she didn't take me seriously. Her response was sharp. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, saying that family should help each other and that I was being ridiculous for caring about being included. She said, "It's not about you being there. It's about helping your sister start her life." I tried to explain that starting a life together shouldn't mean exploiting family who have been excluded, but she refused to hear it. I reached out to my parents for advice. They're fairly neutral, but did remind me that Lily's wedding is her day. They didn't condone her behavior, but also suggested that contributing financially could prevent family drama. I told them I was hesitant because it feels like rewarding her for excluding me. My parents said, "Well, it might smooth things over, but it's ultimately your choice." Since then, our communication has been strained. Lily keeps sending me passive-aggressive texts like, "I guess you don't love your sister, and it would really mean a lot if you could help, but I understand if you're too hurt." I haven't responded. My friends say I'm justified for feeling hurt and refusing to pay for something I wasn't allowed to attend. Others say I should just pay to avoid family conflict. I've thought about compromising by sending a smaller gift, but even that feels like bending too much when the situation started with blatant exclusion. I feel like she's treating me as if I should financially support her happiness without actually being part of it, which feels unfair and one-sided. I also worry that refusing to pay might permanently damage our relationship, but paying feels like I'm letting her get away with dismissing me entirely. I've considered confronting her one last time, but I don't know if it would help or just escalate the tension. So Reddit, AITA here for refusing to contribute financially to my sister's wedding after she explicitly excluded me from attending. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her kids to my wedding rehearsal dinner, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. I, 32F, am getting married in about 6 months. My fiancé, Tom, 34M, and I have been planning a fairly traditional wedding with around 150 guests. Our ceremony will be at a local church, followed by a reception at a nearby venue. Before the wedding, we're hosting a rehearsal dinner at a small, intimate restaurant with about 25 people mostly immediate family, and the wedding party. We chose this setup because it's supposed to be a relaxed evening where we can go over the ceremony, thank our closest people, and spend quality time together before the big day. My sister, Emily, 30F, has 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 8. She's a single mom and often struggles with childcare, which I understand. Emily called me last week to ask if she could bring her kids to the rehearsal dinner. I told her up front that the dinner is meant to be an adult-only event because of the restaurant's size, the seating arrangement, and the nature of the evening. I emphasized that it's a small, intimate dinner and that children wouldn't be appropriate for this particular event. I also reminded her that the wedding itself will be kid-friendly in certain areas, but the rehearsal dinner is intentionally designed as adults only. Emily immediately got upset. She said it was unfair and selfish of me to exclude her children, claiming they're a part of the family and should be included in family events. She told me that not allowing them would make her feel unwelcome and that I was being rigid about something that should be flexible. I tried to explain again that the restriction isn't personal against her or her kids, but about logistics, the size of the venue, and the intended tone of the dinner. I also offered alternatives like arranging for a babysitter for the kids, having them spend the evening with our parents, or even taking family photos before the dinner so they could be included in some way. She rejected all these suggestions, saying it wouldn't be the same. The conversation got more heated when Emily accused me of always favoring my fiancé's family over mine. She said that he has nieces and nephews who won't be at the rehearsal dinner, and that I was picking favorites by enforcing the adults-only rule selectively. I reminded her that the rule applies to all children and that it's not about favoritism. It's about practicality and the nature of the dinner. She countered that my explanation felt like an excuse and that I didn't value her family. Emily then started messaging our other relatives, framing me as unreasonable. She said I was being inflexible, unkind, and that I was turning a special family event into something exclusive and cold. Some relatives have reached out to me privately, asking if there's any way to let the kids attend. I've tried to explain that the decision is final because of seating limitations and the restaurant's policies, and that bending the rule for one person would create logistical chaos and potentially upset other guests. I feel guilty because I know she's struggling with childcare and doesn't have a lot of support, but I also feel strongly that my boundaries are valid. The rehearsal dinner is meant to be adult-focused, and the restaurant cannot accommodate a noisy table with 3 young children. I also worry that if I give in, it sets a precedent for future events, where children may feel entitled to attend adult gatherings that aren't suitable for them. Some friends have told me I'm justified because my wedding events are my decisions, and planning requires boundaries, especially when it comes to venue limitations. Others, including some family members, say I should just make an exception because it's Emily and her kids, and she has no one else to help. I've offered compromises like babysitters, pre-dinner photos, and even a small separate meal for her and the kids nearby, but she insists that none of that is the same and that I'm being unnecessarily strict. The tension has caused ongoing stress. Emily is now distant, and I'm worried about the atmosphere at the rehearsal dinner if she arrives upset. I feel torn between wanting her to be happy and included and protecting the structure and tone of the event we've worked hard to plan. I've communicated calmly, offered alternatives, and explained the reasoning, but she continues to frame me as uncaring. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her kids to my wedding rehearsal dinner, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. Character count, 6,648, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house during his transition period. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I work a steady job, own my own home, and take pride in keeping my life organized. My sister, Lily, 29F, has always been more chaotic. She jumps from relationship to relationship and has a history of letting people take advantage of her. That's part of why what happened recently has me questioning whether I'm the asshole. Lily has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about a year. When they started dating, I noticed some red flags. He has a history of being unemployed, has bounced around living situations, and can be very controlling in subtle ways. Lily was in love, so I kept my opinions to myself, mostly. About 2 months ago, Lily called me in a panic. Mark had just been fired from his job, again, and she said he had nowhere to go. She was crying and begging me to let him stay at my house for a short transition period while he got back on his feet. I asked her for specifics. She said he would be staying for a couple of weeks at most, that he would pay for food, and that he would absolutely respect my space. I reluctantly agreed because, well, it's my sister, and I thought a couple of weeks wouldn't be the end of the world. The moment he arrived, things started going downhill. Mark immediately acted like he owned the place. He left his shoes in the middle of the living room, piled his clothes on my bed, and even took over my kitchen without asking. I tried to set boundaries, explaining he needed to clean up after himself, respect my house rules, and that the stay was temporary. He got defensive, claiming I was unwelcoming and hostile. A week in, he started asking me to do small favors, pick up groceries for him, give him a ride to job interviews, and even let him borrow money to cover rent for another place he hadn't arranged yet. I said no multiple times. At that point, Lily was messaging me nonstop, saying I was making life harder for him and that I was unsupportive. I tried to explain that a transition period didn't mean taking care of him entirely while he freeloaded. Things escalated when Mark decided he wanted to redecorate the guest room while he was there. He bought a bunch of new furniture and paint, insisting I approve the color scheme and placement. I refused outright. He got angry, saying that my refusal was controlling and that he didn't feel welcome. At this point, I realized the couple of weeks had stretched into almost a month. I told Lily that Mark needed to find another place immediately. I tried to explain that my home is not a free boarding house and that his presence was making me uncomfortable. Lily exploded, saying I was trying to control her life and that I was being cruel. She said he was in a difficult spot and that I should show family support. I stood firm, and after several tense conversations, Mark left, but not before leaving the guest room a complete mess, including stains on the carpet and walls that needed repainting. After he left, Lily refused to speak to me for a week. When we finally talked, she accused me of being selfish and not caring about her happiness. I pointed out that I had tried to help, but boundaries exist for a reason. She said I was punishing her for being in love and choosing the house over family. I'm still having to repair the damage to my guest room, which has cost me both time and money. Meanwhile, Lily and Mark are planning their wedding, and I've been getting passive-aggressive texts implying I should just forgive and forget and support them. I do want to be clear that I care about my sister and want to maintain our relationship, but I can't allow someone to completely disrespect my home and take advantage of my hospitality. I keep replaying the situation in my head, wondering if I should have been more accommodating or if I truly handled it correctly. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he clearly overstepped boundaries during his transition period. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me, even though I already offered him a temporary place to stay. I, 28F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I've always been very independent and a bit particular about my living space, but I also try to help out family when I can. My sister, Laura, 30F, has a fiancé, Mark, 32M, and they've been together for about 3 years. I've met Mark plenty of times, and I've always liked him, but he could be kind of high maintenance and moody. About 6 months ago, Laura and Mark were having some trouble with their apartment. They got behind on rent, and Mark's job situation was unstable. Laura asked if Mark could stay with me temporarily while they figured things out. I didn't hesitate. I cleared out the spare bedroom and let him stay for about 2 months. It wasn't ideal, but I thought it was helping them avoid a bad situation, and I felt okay about it. Mark was polite enough and tried to be low-key, although he left dishes around and borrowed money a couple of times, which I didn't love, but tolerated because it was temporary. Fast forward to last week, and I get a text from Laura. She says that their apartment is officially uninhabitable due to some water damage, and they'll need somewhere to stay for a while. She suggests that Mark could move back in with me until they find a new place. I told her honestly that I couldn't host him again. I explained that my apartment is small, and having someone live with me long-term isn't feasible. I reminded her that I helped him before, but that was a temporary solution and it was already disruptive enough. Laura immediately got upset. She said I was being selfish and family shouldn't turn away someone in need. She accused me of only helping the first time because it was convenient, and now I was refusing to be a decent sister. I tried to reason with her, pointing out that Mark staying here for a week or two might be manageable, but an indefinite stay is not something I can accommodate. She argued that if it were me in trouble, she'd do anything for me, and that I was choosing comfort over family. He stayed firm. I offered to help in other ways, like helping them look for apartments, lending them money for a deposit, or even letting Mark crash on my couch for a couple of nights, but I made it clear that I couldn't let him live here for an extended period. Laura was furious. She said she couldn't believe I kicked them out and that I didn't care about family. She hasn't spoken to me properly since the argument and has been posting vague, passive-aggressive things on social media about how some people only care about themselves. Meanwhile, Mark texted me directly saying he understood, but then tried to negotiate, saying he could pay rent or even share chores. I politely told him that it wasn't about the money. It's about my personal boundaries and the fact that my apartment just isn't suited for two adults living together long-term. He thanked me, but said that Laura was really hurt and implied I might be destroying their relationship by refusing him. My parents are also involved now. They called me, and my mom said that I should reconsider because it's the right thing to do for family. I argued that helping in practical ways doesn't always mean having someone live in your home. My dad said that I'm technically not obligated, but I might be damaging family relationships by being inflexible. I feel stuck because I genuinely want to help Laura and Mark, but I also feel like my boundaries are completely reasonable. My apartment is small, I like my privacy, and I had already done a lot to help before. I've suggested solutions that involve helping them find a new place or offering short-term support, but Laura and Mark seem to see that as not enough. I guess my main concern is that my refusal is making me out to be the villain in the eyes of my sister, my fiancé, and my parents, even though I'm trying to help in other ways. I'm trying to be compassionate, but I also have to live in my own space without added stress. So AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me again after I already helped him temporarily. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to do something I found unreasonable. I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 26F. Growing up, we were inseparable, but as we got older, our lives naturally diverged. I live in another state and have a demanding job that doesn't leave a lot of flexibility for long vacations. Emma has always been the planner and very detail-oriented, which sometimes comes across as controlling, but I generally understood that it was her personality. Recently, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Mike, 27M, and I was genuinely happy for her. We had many conversations about our wedding plans, and I was mostly supportive. I made sure to clear my schedule for the week of her wedding months in advance, booked my flight, and even made arrangements to take a few extra days off to help her if she needed it. I wanted to be there for her, but I also had some limitations due to work. Everything was fine until last week, when Emma sent me a very long message outlining her wedding vision and expectations for family participation. She was very specific, as usual. The part that bothered me most was when she told me that she wanted me to completely transform my appearance to match her bridesmaid's vision, which included a strict dress code, specific hairstyle, makeup, and even a requirement to get my nails done professionally in a particular style and color she had picked out. I have never been very into makeup or elaborate styling, and while I would have happily worn the dress she picked, the rest felt excessive to me. I tried to gently explain that I wasn't comfortable with getting extensive professional makeup, hairstyling, and nail appointments, partly because I don't wear makeup that much, and also because of cost and personal comfort. She responded by saying that I owe it to her to look perfect on her wedding day, and that all the other bridesmaids agreed, so there's no reason I can't. At that point, I felt cornered. I don't mind putting effort into attending her wedding and supporting her, but being told that I must transform myself to meet someone else's strict aesthetic made me uncomfortable. I told her that I would attend the wedding, with a dress she picked, and participate fully in her celebration, but I would not be paying for professional services or changing my natural appearance to that extent. Emma's response was very dramatic. She accused me of being selfish, saying that I was ruining her dream wedding and that I didn't care about her feelings. She even threatened to uninvite me if I didn't comply. I felt blindsided because I thought our relationship was stronger than this. I tried to explain that my refusal wasn't about not supporting her, but she refused to listen. After a few more messages back and forth that got increasingly tense, I finally told her that if she couldn't accept my boundaries, I wouldn't be attending her wedding. She immediately blocked me on all social media and sent a group text to our family explaining that I had chosen to skip her special day because I couldn't be bothered to look nice enough. The rest of the family has been calling and texting me nonstop. My parents are frustrated with me, saying that I should just suck it up for one day and that I'm being dramatic. Some relatives have expressed support, but many are telling me I'm being selfish and disrespectful. I feel hurt and angry because I don't think it's unreasonable to have personal boundaries about my appearance, especially when it comes to something as personal as how I look and feel comfortable. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emma forever, but I also feel like she crossed a line by making me feel obligated to completely alter myself for her wedding. I'm trying to stick to my boundaries while still maintaining family relationships, but everyone seems to think I'm in the wrong. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over this? AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my parenting in front of our family? So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to make it clear. I, 33F, have a 5-year-old daughter, Mia, and I've been a single mom since she was born. I've been doing my best to raise her, balance my career, and maintain relationships with my family, which I like to think has mostly gone well. My younger sister, Claire, 30F, is getting married in about 3 months. She and her fiancé have been planning the wedding for over a year, and she's been very particular about wanting everything perfect. I've always been supportive, but I'm also someone who values boundaries and mutual respect, especially with my family. Claire had asked me to be involved in her wedding planning. Initially, I was happy to help with things like looking at dresses, checking out venues, and helping her brainstorm themes. I thought this was a fun way to spend time together and show my support. But last week, things took a turn I wasn't expecting. We were at our parents' house for a family lunch. Claire started talking about her upcoming bridal shower and the guest list. She was complaining about some of her co-workers and how she didn't want them there. At some point, she casually mentioned that she wasn't inviting Mia because it would be too chaotic and children just aren't fun at events like mine. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just venting, but then she added, "Honestly, I don't get how you let Mia get away with so much. I can't imagine dealing with a child like that all day. No wonder she's always running around like a tornado." I was stunned. I've always been protective of Mia, but I tried to stay calm. I said, "Claire, that's really not fair. Mia is well-behaved, and you've never spent much time with her outside of family events. It's not okay to talk about her like that." My parents tried to intervene, saying, maybe she didn't mean it like that, but Claire doubled down, saying, "I just don't understand how you let her act like that. If I had a kid, I would never let them be so unruly." I was furious. I felt like she was attacking my parenting in front of everyone and undermining me in the worst possible way. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to be involved in any wedding-related tasks that required direct interaction with her or her bridal party. I told her, "I want to support you, but I cannot be part of planning your wedding if you're going to insult me and my daughter. I'll show up for the ceremony, but I'm not helping with anything else." Claire immediately started yelling, calling me dramatic and accusing me of being overly sensitive. She said she was just being honest and that I was taking it too personally. My parents sided with me privately later, saying they understood why I felt hurt, but they also didn't want to get involved in a family feud. Since then, I've received multiple passive-aggressive messages from Claire. She's accused me of trying to ruin her wedding, claiming that my absence from planning is going to cause her stress, and even saying that Mia's absence is now my fault because I'm overreacting. My friends have told me I did the right thing by standing up for myself and my daughter, but I can't help feeling guilty because I don't want to ruin her big day or create lasting tension in the family. I also feel conflicted because part of me thinks maybe I should try to smooth things over. I could apologize for reacting so strongly, even though I don't feel I did anything wrong. But every time I think about it, I feel angry again at her lack of respect for me as a parent. My questions are, AITA for refusing to help with my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting? Should I try to mend things and participate more? Or is standing my ground the right move here? I should also add that I'm not trying to sabotage the wedding or make it about me. I genuinely want to be at the ceremony and celebrate with family, but I cannot involve myself in the planning process where I feel personally attacked. The entire situation has left me feeling anxious about family dynamics and worried about the fallout at the wedding. I'm trying to navigate this as gracefully as possible while protecting myself and my daughter. I'd really appreciate honest judgment because I'm feeling torn between family loyalty and self-respect. Character count, 6,245 word count. 1,050 if you want. I can also expand this story slightly to hit closer to 7,000 characters by adding more drama with a bridal shower, other family opinions, and interactions between Mia and Claire. This could make it even more like the most viral Reddit AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my best friend stay with me for 2 months after her apartment flooded. Even though she says I'm being cruel, I, 29F, live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment in the city. I work full-time as a software developer, and my apartment also doubles as my workspace for side projects. I like having control over my environment and maintaining a predictable routine because my work can be stressful and requires focus. My rent is high, and I've worked hard to build a stable life for myself. My best friend, Hannah, 28F, has been a close friend for about 10 years. We've supported each other through school, jobs, and relationships. She recently experienced an apartment flood, which made her current unit unlivable. She called me in a panic, saying she needed a place to stay while she figured out temporary housing. At first, she mentioned a week or 2, and I said I could accommodate her for a few days at most, but anything longer would be difficult because I work from home and rely on my apartment for personal space and focus. Hannah seemed understanding at first. She said she'd try to find a short-term Airbnb or stay with another friend if necessary. A week later, she called again, saying the repairs were delayed and now she would need to stay for 2 months. She asked if I could make an exception because her situation was out of her control and she had nowhere else to go. I told her no. I explained that 2 months was far too long for her to stay in my small apartment, that I needed my space to work and live comfortably, and that my lease and lifestyle weren't set up for another adult living with me indefinitely. I emphasized that I wanted to help her in other ways. I could assist in finding temporary housing, cover a portion of a short-term rental, help with moving logistics, or even store some of her belongings temporarily. I told her that while I cared deeply about her, her staying for 2 months was not feasible for me. Hannah's reaction was immediate and intense. She called me selfish, cruel, and unsupportive. She said I was choosing my comfort over our friendship, and that if I refused to let her stay, she didn't know how we could remain close. She claimed I was treating her like she didn't matter, and that I should be more family-like because I've known her for a decade. I tried to explain that setting boundaries doesn't mean I don't care about her. It means I have limitations and responsibilities that I can't ignore. She didn't accept that reasoning. After that, Hannah started messaging mutual friends, portraying me as heartless. She said I wouldn't help a friend in a genuine emergency, and that I was willing to let her struggle alone rather than compromise. Some of our friends reached out to me privately, asking if I could reconsider or suggesting that maybe it was being too rigid. I explained the situation, that my apartment is small, that my work requires uninterrupted focus, that having her stay for 2 months would create logistical and emotional strain, and that I was offering alternative solutions to support her without compromising my own life. Hannah refused all alternatives. She said that temporary rentals or staying with others were not the same, and that she needed stability and couldn't manage moving from place to place. She also suggested that since I live alone and have space, it was reasonable for me to let her stay. I countered that having space doesn't mean it's appropriate or fair to invite someone to live there for 2 months, especially when it disrupts my work and life. The situation has put a strain on our friendship. She's distant now, and I feel anxious about communicating with her because she often frames any boundary I set as me being cold or uncaring. I feel guilty because she's in a difficult position and has no immediate alternatives, but I also feel that giving in would create ongoing resentment, stress, and a potential pattern where she assumes she can rely on me for long-term housing whenever she faces a problem. I've tried repeatedly to help her in ways that don't involve her moving in, researching temporary housing options, offering financial support for a short-term stay, and helping organize storage for her belongings. She's rejected all of it, insisting that nothing is adequate unless she physically stays in my apartment. I worry that if I allow her to move in, the stress on both of us would damage our friendship even more. Some friends say I'm justified in protecting my boundaries because my apartment is my private space and 2 months is far beyond temporary. Others say I should compromise and let her stay for a while because she's in crisis and it's a reasonable request from someone she's close to. I feel torn between wanting to support her and protecting my home, routine, and mental health. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my best friend stay with me for 2 months after her apartment flooded. Even though she says I'm being cruel, character count, 6,657, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to take my sister-in-law's dog, despite her guaranteeing it wouldn't be a problem. I, 32F, have a long-standing history of being very particular about pets in my home. I grew up in a family where my dad was allergic to cats and my mom had asthma, so we never really had pets, and I developed some mild allergic reactions myself. I've also always been more of a dogs in their yard, not in my apartment person. I have friends with dogs, and I can be around them for short periods, but I've never owned one, and frankly, I like it that way. My husband, Matt, 34M, grew up with dogs and has always loved them. He's respectful of my boundaries, though, and we've managed our household without pets without any major conflicts. My life is structured. I like routines, and the idea of taking care of a dog, especially a dog that isn't trained, just isn't appealing to me. Here's where it gets tricky. Matt's sister, Emma, 28F, recently moved back to our city after a long stint overseas. She's in her late 20s, single, and has a very demanding job that often requires her to work 12-plus-hour days. Emma has always had pets, mainly dogs, and has been very attached to them. Before she left for overseas, she had a dog named Cooper, a 3-year-old border collie mix, and she was very serious about making sure he was cared for properly. She left him with a neighbor for the time she was gone. When Emma came back, she wanted Cooper with her, but she had signed a lease for an apartment that didn't allow pets. She reached out to Matt and me, suggesting that Cooper could stay with us temporarily until she could figure out her living situation. She emphasized that it wouldn't be a long-term thing and assured us that Cooper was very well behaved. Matt knows how much I dislike surprises with pets and that my apartment is not ideal for a dog. I told Emma that I'm not comfortable taking a dog in my apartment. Emma immediately got defensive and said, "Oh, come on, it's just for a few months. Cooper's easy. I've trained him perfectly. He's a dream." Matt and I both know you love dogs when you're ready. You're just being dramatic. I explained that it's not about loving dogs. It's about the space, my routines, and my mild allergies. She waved it off and said I was being selfish. I tried to compromise, suggesting maybe Matt could take Cooper if he wanted to, and we could hire a dog walker or consider boarding. Emma then told me it's too complicated for Matt to handle alone, and that Cooper needs a stable home immediately. Things escalated when she started showing up at our apartment unannounced with Cooper, expecting me to be okay with it. I told her firmly that no, I cannot care for him. She cried, accused me of hating her dog and hating family, and even threatened to involve my parents to pressure me into saying yes. I stood my ground, and she eventually left, but she's since been sending passive-aggressive texts, memes about cold-hearted sisters-in-law, and guilt-tripping both me and Matt. Matt has been very understanding, and he's trying to mediate. He told Emma that he can spend time with Cooper, but that I am not taking him into the apartment. Emma seems to think he's choosing the easy way out, and is now subtly pressuring him to take the dog full-time. I have made it clear that the only compromise is for Cooper to go to a boarding facility, doggy daycare, or a friend/family member who wants a dog, none of which are me. Some family members have started taking Emma's side, claiming I'm being unreasonable and should make a small sacrifice for family. They say a few months isn't a big deal, and I'm letting a cute dog come between family bonds. I feel like this is a huge overstep on Emma's part, and that she's ignoring my boundaries. I also feel like if I cave, it will set a precedent for her to continue doing this with any pets in the future. So here I am, feeling like the villain in everyone else's eyes just because I refuse to take on a pet I never wanted for a relative who refuses to respect my space and routines. I don't hate dogs. I just hate being forced into caring for one, especially one that's not mine, in my home. I want to be clear that I'm not unwilling to help Emma find a solution. Matt can take Cooper during the day, she can consider pet boarding, or she can find a friend who wants a dog. But I am not budging on having Cooper live in my apartment. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to take Emma's dog despite her repeated promises and emotional pleas? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids? So, I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who is getting married next month. Up until recently, things between us were okay. Not perfect, but fine. We've had our sibling rivalries and occasional disagreements, but we were close enough. A few months ago, Emily started planning her wedding, and I thought it would be fun to be part of it. I even helped her pick out colors and gave her some ideas for decorations. The problem started when she announced her bridesmaids. I was not included, which I didn't expect to be a huge deal because she only invited her childhood friends, and I don't really hang out with most of them. What did bother me, however, was that she invited her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend, who she had a falling out with over 5 years ago. This is the part that confused me because Emily had told me multiple times that she didn't like this girl, that she was rude and manipulative, and that Emily had no interest in ever being in contact with her again. Yet now she is being given the honor of standing next to Emily on the most important day of her life. I texted Emily to ask why she chose her, thinking maybe I misunderstood something or there was a reason I didn't know. She replied that she wanted to forgive and move on, and that she didn't want old grudges to dictate her happiness. I understood the sentiment, but I felt like my feelings and our past experiences as sisters were being overlooked. I confronted her again, explaining that I couldn't understand prioritizing someone she admitted she didn't like over the sister she grew up with. She got defensive and said that she wasn't asking for my approval, and that it wasn't about me. At that point, I decided to withdraw from attending the wedding entirely. I explained to her that if she was putting someone I had a complicated relationship with in such an important role, I couldn't, in good conscience, support the wedding by being there. I also said that seeing that person standing next to my sister would be emotionally hard for me. She called me dramatic and said I was being unreasonable and selfish, and that it was her day, and I could either be happy for her or not come at all. After I told her I wasn't coming, other family members started getting involved. My parents tried to convince me to attend, saying that I was overreacting and that I needed to put my feelings aside for Emily's happiness. Some of my cousins agreed with me and thought that Emily had crossed a line by inviting someone she had admitted she didn't like. There was a huge argument over group texts, and now I feel like the entire family is against me, except for a few cousins. I don't regret my decision to not attend because I feel like Emily didn't consider my feelings at all and was dismissive when I brought them up. At the same time, I feel guilty because this is her wedding and it's a huge milestone. I also feel like maybe I could have just gone and smiled through it, but I worry I would have resented her for the entire event. My friends are split as well. Some say I'm standing up for myself and protecting my mental health, while others say I'm overreacting and should have swallowed my pride for one day to support my sister. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of who she chose as a bridesmaid? Background info. We've had a history of minor disagreements, but nothing major. I have always been supportive of Emily, helping her through breakups and school struggles. I feel like this is a tipping point where my boundaries are being ignored. AITA for refusing to lie to my family about my sister's engagement. So, this is going to be long and messy, but I really need an outside perspective because I feel like I'm the asshole in this situation, even though part of me is certain I'm not. I'll try to lay it out clearly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Mia, 25F. We've always been close, but lately, things between us and our extended family have gotten really complicated. A few weeks ago, Mia got engaged. She's been dating her boyfriend, Jake, for a little over a year. From the outside, they seem happy, and she's clearly excited, but there's a lot about this engagement that's complicated. Here's the thing. Mia has been struggling with her mental health for years. She has anxiety and depression, and her parents have always been very protective of her. The issue isn't just that she struggles. It's that she tends to make decisions impulsively when she's in a manic or overly emotional state. Over the years, this has led to a few relationships that were extremely short-lived and ended badly. Everyone in our family knows this history, except our grandparents and some of our more distant relatives. When Mia told me she was engaged, I was genuinely happy for her, but I also knew something didn't sit right. The engagement ring she showed me was secondhand. Her fiancé barely knew our family, and he had a reputation among mutual friends for being kind of controlling. I asked her a few questions, just trying to be supportive but also careful, and I realized that Mia had basically decided to get married after a 2-week vacation with him, without thinking about any of the practical realities. I tried to voice my concerns gently, but she shut me down. She said, "I don't want to hear negativity. If you can't be happy for me, that's on you." Fast forward a week. Our family was planning a surprise engagement announcement dinner at my parents' house. Mia told me in confidence that she didn't want me to tell certain family members that she had called off her last engagement herself. It was messy, and she didn't want the narrative to come out. My parents, on the other hand, were expecting me to be the one to help coordinate the dinner, help with decorations, and basically act as the family cheerleader because I have a reputation for being organized and responsible. The night before the dinner, I found out through a cousin's social media post that Mia's fiancé, Jake, had sent a long text to my parents essentially bragging about getting their family to agree to the engagement. He framed it like he had won some kind of negotiation, which was totally manipulative and gross. I showed the text to Mia. She minimized it, saying, "Don't make a big deal. Everyone will love him once they meet him." I felt like I couldn't just sit there quietly. At the dinner, my parents made a toast. Extended family members who barely know Mia were there. Everyone expected me to say something celebratory, but I couldn't bring myself to lie outright and pretend that everything was perfect. I gave a short speech, congratulating her in a very neutral tone, and said something like, "We're happy for you and Jake. We hope this is a happy step for both of you." It wasn't malicious, but it wasn't the over-the-top enthusiastic reaction my parents were hoping for. I also subtly hinted to some close family members that Mia might need support and that the engagement seemed sudden. After the dinner, Mia exploded at me. She accused me of sabotaging her engagement, telling my parents that I was trying to ruin her special moment. My parents were angry, too. They said I should have just gone along with it and kept my opinions to myself. My cousin called me later, saying I was so dramatic and that I should have just clapped and smiled. Even my partner, who knows how complicated Mia's mental health history is, told me, "Maybe you overstepped." I'm now in this weird position where my parents are upset with me, my sister barely speaks to me, and a few family members have texted me passive-aggressive messages about supporting your sister and not making everything about you. Here's where I need outside perspective. I don't think I did anything wrong. I didn't insult Mia. I didn't lie. I didn't try to ruin the engagement. I just refused to pretend that everything was perfect when it clearly wasn't, and I subtly tried to protect her and the family from being blindsided if things went badly later. But apparently, not being a cheerleader makes me the villain. So, AITA for not lying about my sister's engagement and refusing to blindly celebrate something I felt was impulsive and potentially harmful. I genuinely feel like I'm being reasonable, but I also understand that celebrations like this are sensitive and maybe I misjudge how to approach it. I just can't shake the feeling that I was being honest in a caring way, and now I'm being punished for it. Has anyone else been in a situation where family expectations for performative happiness clash with real concerns? Character count, 6,496 if you want. I can also craft an even longer, more dramatic version closer to 7,000 characters, with more twists involving family arguments, social media fallout, and a sister's fiancé's manipulations. Basically everything that drives Reddit popularity. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my fiancé's parents watch our dog for a week, even though they said I'm being unreasonable. I, 29F, live with my fiancé, Mark, 31M, in a two-bedroom apartment in the city. We have a medium-sized dog, Bailey, who we've had for about 3 years. Bailey is very attached to us, has separation anxiety, and doesn't do well with loud or chaotic environments. We've trained him extensively, and his routines are very important to keep him calm and healthy. A few weeks ago, Mark's parents, Susan, 58F, and David, 60M, called and asked if they could watch Bailey for a week while we were on a short trip. They said they were happy to take him, feed him, and give him attention, and that it would be fun for the dog to spend time with them. They framed it as a favor for us, saying they wanted to help with our upcoming vacation. I told them that I wasn't comfortable with it. Bailey has never stayed away from us for more than a night, and he reacts very badly to new environments and people. He has separation anxiety and tends to get destructive or refuse to eat when stressed. I explained that we've been working hard to improve his behavior, and sending him to unfamiliar people for a week could seriously disrupt his progress and cause stress for him. I also mentioned that we have a very specific routine, including feeding times, walks, medication for minor allergies, and quiet time, which would be hard to maintain in another household. Mark's parents were surprised. Susan said that they were perfectly capable of taking care of Bailey and that he would be fine. She said, "He's a dog, he'll adjust. You're being overprotective." David added that it would be good for him to have a change of scenery and that we should relax a little. I reiterated that it's not about capability. It's about Bailey's mental health, routines, and comfort. I also said that our home is where he feels safe, and a week away from us could cause unnecessary stress. Mark was caught in the middle. He understands my concerns and agrees that Bailey's well-being is a priority, but he also feels guilty about upsetting his parents. He tried suggesting compromises like dropping Bailey off for a few days instead of full week, but I explained that even a few days could trigger his anxiety and that short visits wouldn't solve the problem. The situation escalated when Susan started texting both of us frequently, saying I was being too controlling and unreasonable. She said, "We just want to help. You're making this about yourself instead of what's best for Bailey." She framed my refusal as me putting my preferences above the dog's benefit. She also suggested that if we truly loved Bailey, we would trust experienced people like them to care for him. I feel guilty because they genuinely want to help and spend time with Bailey, and I know Mark is stressed about the tension. I offered alternatives like hiring a professional pet sitter who can maintain Bailey's routine, or having Susan and David come over to play with him during the day while we're away, so he's comfortable with them and can socialize without leaving his home. They rejected both suggestions, saying it wouldn't be the same as having him at their house. I've explained multiple times that my concern isn't about mistrust or being controlling. It's about Bailey's well-being. He has a delicate temperament, and even minor disruptions can lead to serious anxiety or behavioral issues. I feel like we've found a safe, responsible compromise that allows the dog to remain comfortable while letting his grandparents interact with him. Some friends say I'm justified because pets are family too, and it's important to prioritize their health and emotional needs. Others, including Mark's parents, say I'm being inflexible and selfish, putting my fears ahead of giving Bailey a new experience and letting them bond with him. The tension has caused ongoing stress in our relationship with Mark's parents, and I worry that letting them stay frustrated will create resentment. But I also don't want to risk Bailey's health and well-being. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my fiancé's parents watch our dog for a week, even though they said I'm being unreasonable. Character count, 6,615, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter stay with us during the holidays. So, this is going to be long, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Clara, 32F, for 5 years. She has a daughter, Lily, 12F, from a previous marriage. I have no children of my own. For context, Clara and I both work full-time jobs, and our life has become very structured around work, school, and our 2 dogs. When we first got together, I really wanted to make the relationship with Lily work. I've tried to be patient, attentive, and respectful, but there's a side to Lily I wasn't fully prepared for. She can be manipulative, entitled, and sometimes outright disrespectful. I've tried talking to Clara about it, but she tends to minimize it, saying it's just normal kid behavior, and that I need to be more understanding. Fast forward to the holidays. Last year, Clara's ex, Tim, was supposed to have Lily for the first 2 weeks of December. A week before she was supposed to go, Tim called and said he had to work a last-minute project and couldn't take her. Clara called me, panicked, asking if Lily could stay with us. I agreed reluctantly because I didn't want to make her feel unsupported. That week was honestly exhausting. Lily was constantly arguing, demanding snacks, refusing to do her homework, and basically treating our house like a hotel. I tried to enforce rules like no screens during dinner and getting homework done before TV, but every boundary I tried to set was met with whining, negotiating, or crying. By the end of the week, I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and Clara was frustrated at me because she said I wasn't being empathetic to Lily's needs. After that, I told Clara I couldn't commit to another situation like that. I explained that I loved Lily and wanted a relationship with her, but I also needed to protect my mental health and our home environment. I suggested alternative solutions, like a compromise of half days or me being off duty while she spent the full day with Clara, but she wasn't happy with that. This year, the situation came up again. Tim told Clara he couldn't take Lily during the holidays for a whole week, and Clara immediately assumed Lily would stay with us. I told her firmly that I couldn't host her for a full week. I offered to take her for a few hours each day, or to have fun activities on the weekend, but a full week in our house was not something I was willing to do. Clara reacted very badly. She said I was being cold, unreasonable, and selfish. She brought up last year, saying that I promised to help her when she was in a bind and that I was now breaking that promise. I pointed out that last year was a difficult experience for both of us and that I had been honest about my limits, but she insists that I'm choosing convenience over family. Things escalated when Lily overheard our argument. She got very upset and started crying, saying she didn't want to spend the holidays anywhere else, that she wanted to be with her real family, and that she hated it when I boss her around. I tried explaining that rules are part of living together and that I was just trying to keep the household running smoothly. She responded by storming out of the room and locking herself in her room for hours. Clara then brought up the idea that if I refused, she might spend the week with her parents instead, leaving me alone. I didn't respond because I felt that wasn't a threat I could take seriously. But now, for context, Clara's parents live across the country, and traveling during the holiday is complicated for work schedules, meaning Lily might end up staying with Tim anyway. The tension between Clara and me is an all-time high. She's telling friends and family that I'm refusing to see Lily and that I'm being a terrible stepdad. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm being painted as a villain for trying to establish healthy boundaries in my own home. I honestly feel like this is going to create a permanent rift, and it's stressing me out to the point that I'm losing sleep. I have suggested solutions repeatedly: partial visits, special holiday outings, video calls with Lily, and helping Clara with planning activities that don't require Lily to live with us. None of these solutions are satisfying to Clara. She keeps framing it as an all-or-nothing scenario. Either Lily stays in our home full-time for the week, or I am selfish and heartless. To make matters more complicated, I recently found out from a friend that Tim actually could have taken Lily this year, but decided it was easier to let Clara deal with it. I haven't confronted Clara with this yet because I don't want to start a fight over Tim's choices, but it just adds to my frustration. So now I'm sitting here feeling trapped. I love my wife and I care about Lily, but the thought of hosting her for a full week is honestly terrifying to me. It's not that I don't want to spend time with her at all. I just need reasonable boundaries to prevent our home from turning into chaos and to protect my mental health. Clara sees it differently, and she's pressuring me, saying that family comes first and that I'm not stepping up. I am genuinely torn. I want to maintain my relationship with both Clara and Lily, but I also feel like my feelings and limits are being dismissed. Am I wrong for refusing to have Lily stay with us for the full holiday week? Or am I being selfish? AITA for confronting my sister over what I think is her favoritism and ruining our family vacation? I, 34F, come from a family that's always been close but complicated. My younger sister, Jenna, 29F, and I have always had a competitive streak, though it used to be playful. Lately, it's been increasingly tense. A lot of it stems from our parents, who have a history of unintentionally favoring Jenna because she's the golden child in their eyes, straight A's, award-winning career, and very socially charismatic. Meanwhile, I've always been more introverted, more career-oriented in a field that doesn't carry as much social prestige, and I've always felt like the quiet one who doesn't get celebrated in the same way. I've worked through my feelings about this for years, mostly keeping them internal, but this summer's family vacation turned everything into a mess. Our family, my parents, my sister, her boyfriend, and I rented a large beach house for a week. Normally, our family vacations are fun, but this one quickly became stressful. From the first day, I noticed small things that felt like favoritism. My parents spent most of their time checking in with Jenna about what activities to do, what restaurants to eat at, and even what music should be played in the house. If I suggested something, it was met with polite acknowledgement, but ultimately ignored or vetoed. The final straw came on the third day. We were all having breakfast, and Jenna casually mentioned that she wanted to rent jet skis later. Both my parents immediately said, "That sounds great. We'll all go." I suggested that we could maybe alternate days so we weren't all exhausted and so I could have some solo time on the beach. My parents smiled politely, then completely ignored me and agreed with Jenna that we do jet skis that afternoon. I felt invisible and frustrated, and I think my body language made it obvious. Later that morning, I tried to talk to my parents privately. I explained that I often felt left out of family decisions, and that sometimes it seems like Jenna's opinions were the only ones that mattered. My dad said, "We don't mean to favor her. We just want everyone to have fun." My mom nodded. I felt like they were dismissing me, which made me even angrier, but I didn't push it at that moment. Fast forward to the afternoon, we got on the jet skis. My sister was clearly the center of attention, my parents giving her all the guidance and encouragement. I got frustrated and accidentally crashed mine into a buoy, which was more embarrassing than anything. Instead of being reassured or helped, I noticed my parents laughing and joking about how clumsy I was, while they congratulated Jenna for mastering hers. I tried to laugh it off, but I could feel the resentment building up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the day over and over in my head. The next day, I decided I couldn't just stew silently anymore. At breakfast, I calmly but firmly told my parents and Jenna that I felt invisible on the trip and that it seemed like they always centered Jenna's wants and achievements over mine. I tried to avoid making a confrontation, but I wanted them to understand how hurtful it felt. Jenna's face immediately hardened. She said I was overreacting and accused me of making everything about myself. My mom tried to mediate, saying, "We don't see it that way. We love you both equally." And my dad nodded in agreement. But I could see the tension rising. Jenna barely spoke for the rest of breakfast, and when she did, her tone was sharp and sarcastic. The rest of the vacation became icy. I tried to keep participating in activities, but there was a noticeable divide. My parents continued to check in more with Jenna, and I felt increasingly excluded. By the last night, the atmosphere was unbearable. I was packing my things when Jenna's boyfriend made a snide remark about how I always have to make a big deal out of nothing. I snapped and told him that maybe if he tried listening, he'd understand why I felt hurt. Jenna immediately yelled at me, calling me dramatic and self-centered. My parents were exasperated, saying they didn't want this to ruin the trip, but the damage was done. I flew home the next morning feeling exhausted and guilty. My friends and coworkers have been sympathetic, saying that it sounds like I were right to speak up, but my sister and parents haven't really contacted me except for brief, awkward messages. I feel like I might have overstepped, turning a small observation into a confrontation that left everyone tense. But I also feel like if I hadn't said anything, I'd have kept feeling invisible and resentful. I keep replaying the vacation in my head, wondering if I was unreasonable for bringing this up in the moment. On one hand, I think my feelings are valid. On the other hand, I feel like I ruined what should have been a fun family getaway. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister and parents over what I perceived as favoritism and inadvertently causing tension on our vacation. AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my apartment rent-free, even though he says I'm being selfish. I, 33F, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I work full-time as a nurse and also pick up extra shifts when I can. I've been renting this apartment for 5 years, and I really value having a space that's entirely my own. It's not big, but I've made it comfortable and organized in a way that suits my lifestyle. I also pay all my bills on time and budget carefully to maintain my independence. My younger brother, Jake, 29M, recently lost his job. He's had trouble holding steady employment for the past few years and tends to live paycheck to paycheck. After losing his job, he called me asking if he could move in temporarily until he finds something new. He said it would only be a couple of months and that he would help with groceries and utilities if needed. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that. I explained that my apartment is small, that I work a lot and need my own space to decompress, and that having him move in would disrupt my routine and privacy. I also mentioned that I can't realistically take on the financial burden if anything unexpected happens while he's living with me. I offered to help him in other ways, helping him find a temporary sublet, contributing to the cost of a short-term rental, helping with his resume or job applications, and even assisting him in covering moving costs. Jake's reaction was immediate frustration. He said I was selfish and cold for not letting him stay, claiming that family should come first. He said, I wouldn't ask if I had anywhere else to go. Can't you just help me out for a little while? I reminded him that my refusal isn't about not caring for him. It's about boundaries and logistics. I told him that taking him in could create stress and tension that might harm our relationship, and that I can support him in other ways without compromising my independence. Jake didn't accept that. He called our parents to complain, saying I was letting him struggle and not stepping up as a sister. Our parents called me as well, saying that family should help each other in times of crisis and that I was being too rigid. I explained my reasons again, that my apartment is small, that my work schedule and mental health require me to have a stable living space, and that I'm happy to help him find alternatives. My parents suggested I compromise, even just for a short time, to support him when he really needs it. I feel guilty because I know Jake is struggling and doesn't have immediate alternatives. I also know that other family members view my refusal as me being harsh. But I also feel strongly that taking him in would create stress for both of us and could lead to resentment down the line. I've tried to find a middle ground, offering financial support, assistance with temporary housing, and help with job hunting, but he insists that none of that is the same as staying with me. Some friends say I'm justified because my apartment is my home and I have a right to protect my space and routines. Others say I should compromise and let him stay for a short period because he's family and genuinely in need. I feel torn because I want to help my brother, but I also need to protect my independence and mental health. I've tried communicating calmly and offering alternatives, but he frames my refusal as selfishness and a lack of care. The situation has caused ongoing tension. Jake is distant and angry, and our parents are subtly critical, which adds stress to my life. I worry that if I give in, it will set a precedent for future situations where he expects me to provide long-term housing. I also worry about the impact on my mental health, since my apartment is my sanctuary and having someone live there who may be stressed, frustrated, or irresponsible could make it difficult for me to function. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my apartment rent-free, even though he says I'm being selfish. Character count, 6,646, white heavy check mark. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.